A Spanish teenager learns how to hack through YouTube videos and uses this knowledge to give free HBO subscriptions, crack Burger King ordering machines, public bike rental stations, and posts it all on his social media accounts that are followed by 100,000 fans. People call him the hacker Robin Hood. Then, at the age of 19, he orchestrates the biggest cyber attack in Spain's history, in which he gains access to confidential data of 90% of the country's population. He then sells that data to criminals via a dark web search engine that he created himself. It all sounds like a plot of a Netflix show, but it all happened for real in Spain not so long ago. But let's start at the beginning. Alcasec, whose real name is José Luis Huertas Rubio, is a Spanish hacker from Madrid. According to him, he started learning programming and cybersecurity at the age of 14, purely from YouTube tutorials. He says he did it for his ego, to prove to himself that he could access any website or service he wanted. Alcasec says that at the start he would fulfill the stereotype of a juvenile hacker, breaking into his school's grading system to boost the exam grades for himself and his friends, before moving into more serious attacks. At the age of 16, he already started conducting cyber attacks on a larger scale. At first, taking mostly harmless actions, like hacking the BCMAD, Madrid's public bike rental system. The bike station's display would show a message, hacked by Alcasec, repeated a couple of times, and all the bikes would be unlocked, available to anyone for free. This stunt would earn him the status of a cyber age Robin Hood, as his Instagram and Twitter accounts got more attention. He later went further and hacked a Burger King in Madrid. Alcasec made it so that people could order food for free and posted about it on his socials. The last major attack that he conducted, before entering his darker phase, targeted a major streaming company, HBO.
A verlo, vale. Empecé hackeando HBO, ¿vale?
Vale.
Y...
Tu primera cosita fue HBO.
No, mi primera cosa pública.
Primera cosa pública.
Sí, lo primero público que hice fue HBO, que encontré un fallo en el que tú podías crear cuentas de HBO gratis con 2 meses de suscripción. Puedes crearla gratis con 2 meses de suscripción. Porque en el servidor tú podías cambiar unos parámetros y le ponías... Y vamos, o sea, poniendo lo que pusieras, te creaba la cuenta. Es distinto a... O sea, no comparéis esto con la gente que vendía cuentas y sacaba cuentas de HBO, porque eso es coger una lista de nombres y contraseñas filtrados, los pasas por un programa que te comprueba si funcionan en HBO y las venden. Eso no tiene nada que ver.
¿Tú generaste cuentas de la nada?
Sí, hice 151.000 cuentas de HBO con suscripción y las regalé por Instagram para todo el mundo.
¿Las regalabas?
Sí, todo el que quisiera.
The streaming company claims that this attack caused them to lose €500,000. After this, he went silent for some time, but came back with something special. He managed to infiltrate the Madrid health system, giving him access to do almost everything, like writing prescriptions, changing appointments, or accessing the medical history of almost all of Madrid. Again, he bragged about this on social media by posting a picture of a medical records belonging to Santiago Abascal, a Spanish politician, the president of the Vox party. The picture was captioned, "Can I prescribe something?" Alcasec was arrested in April 2020 on accusations of numerous cyber attacks, some of which I already mentioned. He was sentenced to 2 years in a semi-open juvenile detention center, as he was 16 at the time of his sentencing. His sentence was suspended after reaching an agreement with the prosecutor's office, which stated that he won't commit any more crimes during that time. In the summer of 2020, a Spanish newspaper called La Sexta did a report saying that Alcasec's whole family was living off his scams, which really angered him. He decided to go for revenge and infiltrated Mediaset, a company which he believed was the owner of La Sexta. Once inside, he claims that things got out of hand as he saw the money. Alcasec created a credit card in the name of Paolo Vasile, the CEO of Mediaset, and so he began to steal money from the company. Weeks later, it got discovered, but before that happened, he managed to get access to the database of the National Police from which he stole the police records as well as a list of all the active policemen, data that is of particularly high demand on the black market. In February 2021, a joint operation of the National Police and the Civil Guard was carried out that led to his arrest and sentencing.
Vale, ¿no?
¿Qué pasa cuando te pillan haciendo algo de ese nivel?
Vale, cuando me pillan, en febrero de 2021, el 4 creo que fue, yo estaba durmiendo y entra la policía a casa.
¿Por la noche, a medianoche?
Sí, a la 1.
Hostia, yo me cago, te tiran la puerta. Me cago encima.
Estaba yo sobado, me tiran la puerta partida en dos, la pared arrancada y nada, pues entra un tío así con una pistola, al suelo.
No me lo puedo creer.
Y yo sobado en la cama, ¿qué pasa? Me pega un tirón que, vamos, no he salido más volando en la vida, media habitación volé, me tira para el suelo, me pone así, el tío sentado en el suelo y yo, escucha, tío, que no te voy a hacer nada, que ya me ves, que no estoy aquí por
colacao, bro.
No estoy aquí por matar a nadie.
Estará tranquilísimo aquí durmiendo, tío.
Sí, estaba bastante tranquilo. Y...
He was 17 years old at the time, and so he avoided being sent to prison again. Instead, he was transferred to the El Lavadero, a juvenile center in Madrid. Even though this facility is technically not a prison, it is definitely built and run like one. He remained there for 5 months. At this point, Alcasec was already quite well known in Spain. Through a mutual friend, he met another very controversial figure, namely Francisco Nicolás, known better under his nickname El Pequeño Nicolás, which translates to Little Nicolás. Nicolás is a Spanish criminal and a former law student. He became famous for being arrested on charges of forgery, fraud, and identity theft. He would infiltrate the Spanish political scene at the highest level, impersonating an agent of the Spanish intelligence agency and being a guest in the crowning of the current Spanish king Felipe VI. According to Nicolás, they met when Alcasec was still a minor and became friends. Nicolás thought that he was a genius and a wasted talent because of his shift from mostly harmless hacks to nationwide cyber attacks. He also claims that he identified with him, as both were having legal problems at very young age and had a similar family background. What's more, Nicolás says that he tried to persuade Huertas to get away from the dark side and create a cybersecurity company to make more money in a legal and beneficial way. The police reports apparently claim that Francisco paid 30,000 euros for a psychologist to make positive reports about Alcasec so that he could leave the juvenile center. Alcasec's perspective on the relation is very different. He claims that it was more transactional and states that Nicolás asked him to access information about influential people like politicians and businessmen. One article from genbera.com states that Nicolás acted as a mentor for Alcasec and convinced him to carry out more sophisticated hacks on a bigger scale, like the one that affected the judicial neutral point. This attack will be covered in detail in the coming chapters. To my knowledge, all of those things are just speculations, but one thing that is certain is that they definitely met and had a more or less friendly relation for some time. Somewhere in 2021, their friendship would deteriorate. Some newspapers claim that Alcasec and his friends were connected to the brutal beating of Nicolás that happened in Marbella that year, but during my research, I haven't found any credible source that would confirm that. At the beginning of 2022, Alcasec got a second chance, and thanks to the mediation of a cybersecurity specialist, Huertas got a job in a company within his field of interest. However, at the end of March 2022, he was arrested again among 8 other hackers on suspicion that he took part in a cyber attack on Grenada's city council and Madrid's community department. The hackers managed to forward several payments to their own accounts and then converted all the money to crypto, swiftly covering their tracks for the time being. In this attack, they managed to steal more than 50,000 euros. Alcasec denied taking part in this attack and says his arrest was unlawful and based only on the fact that he knew the people that did it personally. He was released on May 25th and a couple of days later appeared on the Club 113 podcast. This podcast has since reached 2 million views, becoming the most popular video on the channel. Some of the clips from this podcast were already used in this video. As a result of his March arrest, the Juvenile Court of Grenada decided to resume his sentence for earlier offenses in a detention center located between the cities of Almería and Murcia, far from his hometown Madrid. According to the jury, his arrest broke Article 50.1 of the law regulating criminal responsibility, which states, when the minor breaks a custodial measure, he shall be reinstalled in the same center from which he has escaped, or in another appropriate to his conditions. Alcasec and his lawyer claimed the decision was against the Spanish constitution and the presumption of innocence. The judge that sentenced him was Emilio Calatayud, known for his didactical approach to sentencing. For example, someone had to visit the trauma ward in a hospital in Grenada after driving his motorbike without insurance, or work in a fire department as a punishment for burning down garbage cans. Alcasec very quickly gained many privileges in the detention center, thanks to his good behavior, and was able to frequently leave the center for a couple of days. He was detained in Almería from May until October 2022, and claims that he spent almost a month of that time outside of the facility. After he left, it didn't take him long to get in trouble again, as he was about to conduct the biggest cyber attack in Spanish history. The General Council of the Judiciary is a constitutional body that governs all the judiciary of Spain, such as courts and judges. This entity also manages the Judicial Neutral Point, a system that connects the courts with other public institutions, like the State Tax Administration Agency, the police, or the General Directorate of Traffic. On the evening of October 18th, the system has been infiltrated, and the first attack happened. Banking data of more than 430,000 taxpayers have been stolen in the first attack. Then 2 days later, the second attack happened that resulted in the data of another 130,000 people to be hijacked. And so, in a couple of days, more than 500,000 people became vulnerable to scams or even life-threatening attacks. The investigation was started and led by the National Cryptological Center, part of the Spanish intelligence agency. They concluded that the attack was almost identical to those that happened in the last years. The cybercrime units of the National Police and the Civil Guard started to follow the digital trail, and almost half a year later, on the 3rd of April 2023, they had the first results. Alcasec was arrested and accused of being behind the attack. Alongside him, his friend, Daniel Bayo, was also arrested as he helped to create the fake website that was used to steal the credentials of government officials that were then used to access the neutral point. The hackers found a bug on the website that allowed them to embed an indistinguishable fake website on top of the original. Through Telegram, they contacted a Russian service that provided untraceable domains that were hosted in Hong Kong. The servers are deemed to be bulletproof, as the IP address varies every week, and if Bayo wouldn't respond to the server within a certain amount of time, the Russians were to clear and dismantle the server, leaving no trace behind. The website that the hackers created granted login information of 2 justice officials. Alcasec then prepared for the second phase of the attack, that would result in the infiltration of the neutral point and the theft of data. He managed to mask his IP address so that it corresponds to the range within the General Directorate of Police, and so no initial alarms were set off. After gaining access, he conducted the 2 attacks already described at the start of this chapter. The first one on the 18th of October and the second one on the 20th of October. And so he stole the confidential data of more than 500,000 people. All of this data was then transferred to a server located in Lithuania that also hosted Alcasec's latest project, Udiat, an on-demand query service for buying the stolen data. After the attack on the General Council of the Judiciary, Alcasec would sell the stolen data on the platform he created himself, called Udiat, a reference to the Egyptian symbol known as the Eye of Horus. On the 21st of February 2023, before he was arrested, Alcasec was a guest on the Club 113 podcast again. There, he described his stay in the detention centers, as well as briefly mentioned his Udiat database.
¿Puedo preguntar?
Bueno, esa base de datos al fin y al cabo es una recopilación de bastantes años de trabajo, de un montón de bases de datos privadas, y en resumen está toda la información de España.
Que es una base de datos que hiciste.
There, he claims that this database contains information about almost all the people that live in Spain. He states that it is possible to search for banking details, recent transactions, and that there is even plenty of information about celebrities there. Alcasec goes as far as to claiming that it contains the private phone number of Juan Carlos I, the King of Spain that reigned until 2014. The Eye of Horus is a huge project, one that took Alcasec 3 to 4 years to complete. Seeing what he is capable of, those bold claims about having the personal data of 90% of Spaniards might very well be true. This poses a real threat to Spain's internal security, as such data in the wrong hands could lead to disasters. Criminal organizations and mafia could use it to gain information about police cases, ongoing investigations, and the personal details of those involved in those matters, like judges or police personnel. On the other side, such data would also be valuable to any company, since it provides very detailed insights into its customers that could then be used to create better and more effective campaigns. Alcasec himself confirms that during the podcast, stating that this data is especially important to businessmen and that there are loopholes that allow the companies to use that information without any legal consequences. One more person that was arrested in the aftermath of the Neutral Point attack was Juan Carlos Ortega Guerrero. He is supposedly the largest buyer of the data that was stolen. The 25-year-old bought the data to use it in phishing scams, which consist of mass sending messages impersonating bank companies and requesting passwords and other confidential information for supposed security reasons. In total, Ortega has acquired 30 different data packages containing 50,284 records of personal data. Other than that, during his arrest at his house in Sevilla, police officers found unregistered firearms, namely a shotgun, a submachine gun, and a pistol. Juan Carlos Ortega Guerrero has been since put in provisional prison, as his network of contacts involved in the criminal world is extensive. But what happened with Alcasec? As the consequence of the cyber attack on the General Council of the Judiciary, Alcasec has been sent to prison after his arrest, but at the end of May this year, he was released with precautionary measures. His passport has been taken away and he has to appear in court every 15 days. That's where the Alcasec story ends for now. As of writing this video, he seems to have turned his life around, working in a cybersecurity company again, and resembling regret for what he has done. But it is not certain whether he will remain free, as he still faces up to 20 years in prison for the crimes he committed. The hashtag FreeAlca is going viral on all social media platforms, as he still has a large and supporting fan group that sees him as a victim of a non-functional system, and to them, his hacking attacks are justified revenge for the mistreatment that he withstood throughout the years. In this video, a lot of arguments can be found that would support this perspective. Ultimately, it is up to you to decide whether he is a mistreated cyber genius or a dangerous and reckless hacker. At this point, I'd like to also sincerely thank my friend Pablo for helping me with transcribing all the videos and clips used in this material.